Science, Unit 1, Section C, the musculoskeletal system. So students will know in outline the structure and functions of the musculoskeletal system. C1, the skeleton, names and locations of bones and structures, the axial skeleton, cranium, hyoid bone, vertebral column, cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral and caudal regions, rib cage and sternum, the appendicular skeleton, limbs and limb girdle, the functions of the skeleton, protection, support, movement, blood cell production, storage of calcium and phosphate, basic structure of a typical long bone, and then disorders of the musculoskeletal system. Students will know an outline of disorders: osteoarthritis, osteoporosis or rickets, Duchenne muscular dystrophy and myasthenia gravis. C2, joints, tissues and muscles, types of joints: fixed in the skull, slightly movable in the vertebral column, synovial, hinge and ball and socket joints, synovial joint structure, synovial membrane and synovial fluid, physical appearance of muscular tissue as seen in photo or electron micrographs or diagrams, skeletal, smooth and cardiac, structure and functions of muscles, skeletal, smooth and cardiac. And then there's a separate video that deals with muscle contraction and antagonistic muscles and the neuromuscular junction. So C1, the skeleton, appendicular and axial skeleton. You've got the skull, the cranial portion, the facial portion, the clavicle, scapula, the thoracic cage, the sternum, ribs, humerus, ulnar radius, carpals, metacarpals, phalanges. Here is the vertebral column, pelvic girdle or hip bones, the femur, patella, tibia, fibula, tarsals, metatarsals, phalanges. And in this grey browny colour is the axial skeleton, and then in green is the appendicular skeleton. Looking a bit more closely at the axial skeleton, you've got the skull, ossicles, hyoid bone, sternum, vertebral column or spine, and the rib cage. So the vertebral column has the cervical curve, the thoracic curve, lumbar curve, sacral curve. So you've got cervical vertebrae is basically your neck, thoracic vertebrae is behind your rib cage, lumbar vertebrae is the bottom of your back, sacrum, and then the coccygeal vertebrae or coccyx at the bottom. Function of the skeleton: protection. The skeleton protects vital organs such as the skull, shielding the brain and the rib cage, protecting the heart and lungs. Support. It provides a rigid framework that supports the body and maintains its shape. Movement. Bones act as levers and joints as pivots, enabling movement when muscles contract. Blood cell production. Bone marrow inside certain bones produces red blood cells, white blood cells and platelets. Storage of calcium and phosphate. Bones store essential minerals like calcium and phosphate, releasing them into the blood when needed. So you've got protection, storage, support, blood cell production, movement. Structure of the long bone. A long bone consists of a hard outer layer called compact bone, a hollow cavity filled with bone marrow, and ends covered by cartilage for smooth joint movement. For example, a femur, the thigh bone, is the largest bone in the body, tibia and humerus. So you've got on the outside is compact bone, inside you've got spongy bone, and the medulla cavity. And the top and bottom of the bone is called the epiphyses, then you've got the metaphyses, and then you've got the diaphyses, and then metaphyses and epiphyses again. Disorders of the musculoskeletal system: osteoporosis or rickets causes bone weakening or softening. Osteoporosis, description of a condition where bones become porous and fragile due to loss of bone density. Cause is aging or risk factors: aging, hormonal changes, calcium or vitamin D deficiency. Symptoms: increased risk of fractures or stooped posture. Description: rickets is softening and weakening of bones in children due to vitamin D deficiency, so the risk factor is lack of vitamin D. Symptoms are bowed legs, bone pain or delayed growth. Duchenne muscular dystrophy, progressive muscle weakness. It is a genetic disorder causing progressive muscle degeneration and weakness. It's caused by a mutation in the dystrophin gene. Symptoms include difficulty walking, frequent falls, muscle wasting. Effect is loss of mobility, respiratory, and cardiac complications over time. Myasthenia gravis is muscle fatigue due to nerve signal issues. It's an autoimmune disorder where antibodies block communication between nerves and muscles. The risk factors are the cause is the immune system attacks acetylcholine receptors. Symptoms are muscle weakness that worsens with activity, drooping eyelids, difficulty swallowing, and the effect is impaired voluntary muscle control. And then section C2, joints, tissues, and muscles. Types of joints. There's fixed joints is a joint that does not move. It's found in the skull only. A slightly movable joint is where it has slight movement, like vertebral column. Synovial joint is a freely movable joint. There's hinge joints, which are joints between bones like the elbow and knee that permits motion in only one plane. A ball and socket joint is a joint that allows internal and external rotation as well as bending, for example, hip, joint or shoulder. So synovial joint structure, you've got the ligament on the outside joining bone to bone, the cartilage which cushions the bone, joint cavity in the synovial fluid, joint capsule, synovial membrane, compact bone, spongy bone, bone marrow. So the synovial fluid prevents friction between the bones and lubricates the joints. The cartilage acts as a shock absorber. Then the different types of muscles, you've got skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, and cardiac muscle. Skeletal muscle is striated, so like a striped appearance. It's got multi-nuclei per cell, very long cylindrical shape. The function is voluntary movement, locomotion, manipulation of the environment, facial expression, and voluntary control. Smooth muscle has no striations. Cells are tapered at each end. There's one nucleus per cell. The function is to propel substances or objects, foodstuff, urine, along internal passageways, and it's under involuntary control. Cardiac muscle is striated. It has one nucleus per cell and it has branched ends. Its function, as it contracts, it propels blood into the circulation by involuntary control. Describe the gross and microscopic structure of skeletal muscle. It's made of many bundles of muscle fibers or cells packed together. It's attached to bones by tendons. Muscle fibers contain sarcolemma, which is the cell membrane, which folds inwards to form T-tubules. Sarcoplasm, which is another word for the cytoplasm. Multiple nuclei, many myofibrils, a sarcoplasmic reticulum, and many mitochondria. Describe the ultrastructure of a myofibril. It's made of two types of long protein filaments arranged in parallel. You've got myosin, which are thick filaments, and actin, which are thin filaments. They are arranged in functional units called sarcomeres, and the ends are known as Z lines. The middle is known as the M line, and then the H zone contains only myosin. Explain the banding pattern to be seen in myofibrils. I bands are light bands containing only thin actin filaments. A bands are dark bands containing thick myosin filaments and some actin filaments if it's overlapping. And then the H zone here contains only myosin. And the darkest region contains overlapping actin and myosin. And a sarcomere is between Z lines.